I want someone who's just naturally, when no one's watching, this is how she operates or this is how they operate.
I think if you can ask a behavioral question or give them an example of, hey, this is what's happening in our department right now. What type of solution would you come up with? Or how would you handle this situation? Try not to lead them down a path, but leave it very open. And I've had candidates come back to say, oh, well, I just tell them what to do. I just tell them that this is really important and this is what they have to do. Well, we would probably pass on that candidate because we don't want a candidate to come in and just tell our stakeholder what to do. We want it to be a partnership. We want them to be humble. We want them to make it a win-win. So I think if they answer your behavioral-based question or they give you an example that's not going to work for that team, hopefully that will help.
This is the Brandon Smith Show, and of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith. And for today's show, we're going to build on a conversation that we started a month or so back. And I've got my wonderful, amazing guest, Lori Howell, back on the show. Lori, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. I told you would.
And I said, one day you're going to take over this show.
It could happen.
It could happen. This could be the show. So if you didn't catch the show with Lori, last time we talked about recruiting. So Lori, you're a senior recruiter for Cox Enterprises.
Yes.
And we talked a lot about, as the person entering into the job market, what are some things you need to be thinking about as you're kind of going through the recruiting gauntlet? Today's show, and sticking with our theme for 2020, we're going to spend a lot of time this year really focused on leaders and leadership. So we're going to kind of flip it and say, okay, so you're the hiring manager. Like, you need to fill some holes. And what are all the things you either need to think about in that process? So everything from, well, do I even need to hire somebody? And who do I need to hire? And what kind of questions I ask? And how do I try to attract talent in this crazy marketplace? Because I know, I would imagine so much of your time is spent guiding and coaching and counseling your clients, which are really the hiring managers.
Right.
So maybe just for the folks, I'm certain everyone listening to this has already saw your first show.
Of course.
But for those one or two new listeners, okay, share with us just a little bit about kind of your life, what you do today, and then we can start to talk about, as a hiring manager, as a leader trying to fill open positions, what are some kind of good things we can start to think about?
Okay. So yes, I work for Cox Enterprises, 60,000 employees worldwide. And
60,000?
Yeah.
And you've placed all those?
All of them.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Every role, though, is different, right? Each of those 60,000 employees has a unique perspective that they bring to the table. And what's really cool about Cox being a private family-owned company, they've just kind of rebranded. And for 2020, their recruiting and employee brand is Make Your Mark. So come to Cox Enterprises and make your mark.
Yeah.
So as a hiring leader, you want to take advantage of that, and you want to think about, if I'm hiring this person, how are they going to help me make my mark and make me be a successful leader and help me reach the company's goals? And then how can I be the right kind of leader for them? So my job has changed over the last 20 years of starting off in staffing and being a headhunter and then moving into corporate recruiting. Today's role is really about being a talent advisor. And,
how cool.
Right? And a business partner to the hiring manager and the candidate.
Nice. You get to advise me on talent today.
Yes.
I feel so privileged.
Thanks.
It's awesome. And so for those folks who are listening that aren't familiar with Cox, also another complexity to it is, just like a lot of big companies, there's a lot of different business units.
Right.
That do very different things.
Very different things.
Different kinds of business models, different kinds of kind of work they do. And so that adds another level of complexity.
For the recruiting side of it, what we have done is divide into the different divisions, which is helpful. So I actually support Cox Automotive. So I get to be a subject matter expert around supporting that division and what are the type of people that they look for and that are going to be successful, and start building relationships with those hiring leaders. So it's not like I have to work with a different hiring leader or different division each time. So that makes my job easier.
Yeah, super cool. So you actually said something in your kind of description of kind of what you do that I think is a nice segue into this first thing that those hiring managers, I would imagine, need to think about. And that is, what's the strategy of the company this year? What's the direction they're going in? Kind of what's the brand promise, or kind of what are some of those things? Because that needs to be the backdrop of how you're thinking about this. Is that
Absolutely.
fair?
Yeah, it's very fair. So when I first started, the company had just gone through a big acquisition, and what they were hiring for then is very different than what they're hiring for today. So I was meeting with a finance leader this week, actually. And although it's the same role I hired for her like 3 years ago, at that point they were going through a consolidation. Just bring everything together, like get the systems to talk. We just got to get this stuff done. Well, now she actually phrased it as more of an integration. Now we're trying to look at best practices and documentation. So the person I want to hire today has almost a different skill set, and I'm looking for a different personality, which is a great thing that I sat down and talked to her about that, because otherwise I would have just hired the same person for her before. And she had enough thought to know, hey, I need to reach out to Lori, and we really need to talk about where the company is going, where I want this department to go, and what is the personality going to be different this time.
Okay, so super cool. So this person came to you with a strong point of view.
Yes.
Right? They have a point of view and a perspective.
Right.
And on that note, for everyone who's listening that's kind of a director level and above,
right,
what I hear consistently is folks say, what I expect from a director and above is that she or he has a point of view. Kind of different from a manager. It's
right.
Like you should have a real clear point of view.
Right.
So they came with a point of view. Now, how about those folks that don't have a clear point of view? They're like, Lori, I think I need to maybe hire a person or two. I don't even know.
Yeah, that's so
hard.
How
do you help them? What are the questions that you ask to get them kind of a little more clear on, do they need to hire somebody? Is it one person? What's the role?
Right.
What are things that you do to guide them?
Well, the good news is Cox is such a large company. We actually have HR business partners that are part of that process and that conversation. So before they even get permission to hire anyone, they have to meet with their leaders and meet with HR to talk about what is the direction of the company and what are the skills that are needed, and is additional headcount needed, or can that new skill or responsibility be shared amongst the team, right? So by the time they come to me, they've gotten permission that the headcount is needed. We need a true whole new person to do this job. But a lot of times the hiring manager doesn't know what the personality needs to be or what exactly the skill set needs to look like. So that's where I try to be an advisor. And we've done a lot over the last few months of helping people understand you don't need to overhire. You don't need to hire someone with 15 years of experience to do this job. Or just because you're biased because of what worked well in the past, and we talked about this on the last show too, of being creative and thinking about what's going to work well today. So yes, you have this headcount, but what does this person need to look like? And we've closed jobs and reopened them when we've realized we're going down the wrong path. This person with 15 years of experience is not what we need, and they're not going to be happy here either. So let's look at someone with 5 to 10 years instead. So there are really interesting conversations, and sometimes you don't realize it till you get into it.
Okay, so again, there's so much stuff you're saying. You're advising me so much today. So I love there was 2 buckets that came out of that.
Okay.
You said kind of this skill set, competency. We could call that the resume bucket.
Right.
Okay. The other one's the personality bucket.
Right.
And I think both are important. So let's talk about that a little more deeper dive, just so we can button it up officially on the resume bucket. So you said one thing to even ask yourself is how many, you might not need the 15 years if that's what you had last time. Maybe that's not exactly what you're looking for. So how do you help them think about what are those skills or competencies or background elements that are like non-negotiables, and then what are maybe a little more flexible? Like you often see graduate degree preferred. Right. That's kind of a flexible thing.
Exactly.
How do you help them kind of think through that?
Well, that same brilliant leader that I talked about earlier, she actually sent me a list today of these are the must to have. Like this person has to have these things. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. These are the things that would be lovely, and these are the things that that would be amazing, but I know I'm not going to get my unicorn. So I have really started trying to work with my clients on that. Tell me what is you have to have. Okay, well, that skill, people with 3 or 4 years of experience have that skill. You don't need someone with 15 years to do that job.
Oh,
so that's kind of how you help them through it.
So rather than start with the years of experience, you say, let's start with...
What are those? You have to have this skill to do this job.
Must have skills.
Yes.
And then nice to have, and then wish list items.
Exactly.
Nice kind of a bucket. Okay, so now let's really talk about someone who's maybe in an organization that's not as sophisticated as Cox.
Right.
Doesn't have the HR business partner that sits down and kind of coaches them. Someone says, sure, go hire somebody. And then now they got to kind of go do this. How can they determine what are those skills? What are some ways that they can kind of think about that? Or, I would imagine maybe think about your high performers and what they do. I don't know. What are ways to figure that out?
I think you need to talk to the stakeholders that person is going to support, and talk to your team and your leader. Like, where's the company going? Okay, well, what are those skills that are going to help the company? Just like we said, what are the skills that are going to take us to get there? And then the stakeholders that person is supporting. What are the things that they really need to do?
That is brilliant.
This person used to do this for me all the time, but I never needed that report. Why did they send me that every month? They just got in the habit of it and they did it. I really only need this. What? You only need this? Well, I can get someone right out of school that's really good with Excel to do that for you. So I think you have to talk to people. You can't just assume that since we've been doing this for the last 5 years, that's what we need to continue to do.
That is brilliant. Brilliant. Brilliant with a capital B. Hashtag brilliant.
Hashtag brilliant.
And so here's what I heard in that. If I play it through my brain, almost like do 360 interviews on the ecosystem.
There you go.
Like, okay, so my boss, the leader I support, what does she want to see or he want to see from this? Where's the business going?
Yep.
Right. So I know directionally. Who are their customers that they're supporting? What do the customers need and want out of that from that person? Exactly. What's going to be a good experience for them? And then peers that work alongside this person or do this person's job.
Right.
That's going to help you get the things like collaboration and the skill set that they know every day is really important.
And have each of those people part of the interview process.
Oh, smart. It's like pre-wired. So
when you were saying what kind of questions do we ask during the interview? Well, each one of those people are going to ask different questions because they have different needs.
Yeah.
And your perfect candidate is going to be able to answer all of those questions and support all of those people.
Oh, so that's like designed to be successful.
Successful.
Because you're asking all those people about needs and then you're getting them involved in the interview process so they can dig a little bit deeper and say, well, tell me more about how you would do that Excel spreadsheet. So the person
and then they
can't
felt
just say,
bought in too once you hire that person.
Yeah. They get kind of an investment.
Yes.
In that. Now, I could imagine there's a possibility that could also be complicated if they have a candidate they really love and maybe another stakeholder likes a different candidate. Does that ever happen for you? No, never. Everyone always agrees.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you just got to sit down in a room and talk about pros and cons of the different candidates. And most people will realize, okay, I really liked this person selfishly for me, but this person has got to support all of these areas. So I see why you're leaning towards this candidate. But I'm going to keep this person in mind next time I need to hire on my team.
Yeah. Okay, great. So up to this point, we spent a lot of time kind of talking about skill set. Skill set, competency, kind of the experience, the resume, stuff we're looking for.
Right.
And how we kind of think about those stakeholder groups, which is both my boss, customers they'd be supporting, as well as peers on the team.
Right.
Get them all involved in the process. Great. I think that's set up really well for ensuring we're going to get the right skill set and right background.
Right.
But I don't often get asked that question. Question that I get asked all the time, which I'm not an expert at. I can only share what client best practices that other clients tell me.
Right.
Is how do we ensure the right personality fit, Brandon? What are questions to ask or things we can do to figure out someone's personality? Because culture fit, quote unquote, really matters around here.
Right.
So I want to pick your brain on that and get some thoughts from you right after the break.
Excellent.
Like how I set that up. See, I'm on it for 2020, folks. I'm on it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And when we come back, I get Lori's perspective on how do you hire that elusive personality fit. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Here's your coaching minute for the week, presented to you by the Leadership Foundry. Dysfunction in the workplace, it's a pervasive problem. Here's a simple tip to eliminate dysfunction, both in your team, but even in the environments around you. Clarify your team members' roles, goals, and responsibilities. So just spend some time thinking about, does all of my team know? Does each of them know what their role is, what the goals are of the team, and their responsibilities? If the answer is yes, you right there eliminate 50% of all the dysfunction that could come up in your team. If the answer is no, think about how you could do that better. When we don't do that, one of two things happens. Either people overlap work and they step on each other's toes, or you have one person carrying much bigger load while a couple other people are hanging out not doing near as much work. It's one of the big problems in the nonprofit world is a lack of clarity around roles, goals, and responsibilities. So focus on those three things, and I promise you, not only will you eliminate dysfunction, it's going to make your workplace that much more enjoyable. Welcome back to the Brandon Smith Show. Of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith. And right before the show, we were talking about the challenges as a hiring manager to think about that whole recruiting process. How do I think about talent, the talent I need to bring in, and then how do I actually go through the process of selecting the right talent? And that's everything from skill set, making sure I'm doing this right, Lori. She's nodding her head, yes. Skill set and personality. And so before, you had some brilliant ideas on how we kind of wire and set up that process for selection, so we make sure we're getting candidates with the right backgrounds and competencies and skill sets.
Right.
And insert any other HR buzzword in that statement. And then now, the other one is the more mysterious one, personality. We need the right personality in here, Lori. We need the right culture fit.
Right.
So what are some ways we can either think about that, or approaches, or even tricks or tactics you found that have kind of worked?
So I think just like you made the list of the skills that were important, I think you need to make personality must-haves. I need this person to be outspoken and have executive presence. I know that's a big buzzword. Or I don't need that. And someone maybe that really enjoys that being outspoken and being in front of clients, I don't need that in this role. I actually need them more behind the scenes. So I think you need to really list out, what is this person doing every day and what personality is going to work well. I need a collaborator. I don't need someone that's going to pick a fight with all of the stakeholders. I need someone that can find the win-win solution. So you really think about what you need in that job. Is this a job that they literally are behind the scenes? The personality isn't as important to me as them being comfortable in doing this work and being behind the scenes and doing the research and the data and supporting me. Or I need this person to show up in meetings when I can't be there. I need this person to be my right hand in person and on the phone and on webinars, whatever it is, so that when you meet that person, ask those questions. How often do you participate in executive meetings? How much of your day is spent more behind the scenes doing research? So I don't know that there's a magic to it. Is just being honest with yourself about what you need and being honest with the candidate. Hey, this is what this job needs. Is that going to work for you? Yeah.
And I think so much of it is too, often there's the personality piece of that individual, and there's also culture fit with that department or company, could be. And then sometimes that's driven off of values. Like we have a certain set of values. I've got one client organization that I work with, and one of their values that they talk about a lot is humility.
Right.
So making sure they, select someone that's got humility.
Right.
And I think the challenge in the hiring process is you can ask someone, so, how important is humility to you? We know the answer. They're going to say, "Oh, that's me."
Yeah.
Like, yes. Right. Well, do you like? Do you have executive? Yes, I have executive. Yeah. They're going to say yes to all that. Are there any ways you would counsel or advise hiring managers to tease that stuff out, to actually see if it really is something that this person exhibits or is comfortable exhibiting?
Right. Well, don't ask yes, no questions.
Okay. I just did that. I was asking yes, no, and now that's a no-no.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself a humble person?
I'm a horrible hiring manager.
No,
Lori.
You have to say, give me an example of a time when this happened.
Oh, nice. So the good old-fashioned kind of behavioral question. Tell me about a time when ...
And if in your situation on your team, they're going to have to meet with a stakeholder that is not happy about change. And this person is going to be responsible for explaining why this has to happen and how it's going to happen. So ask your candidate, when is a time you've had to do that in a previous role?
Yeah.
Walk me through that. How did you handle it? Because that's what I need you to do in this job.
So what's your feeling on candidate presentations? Like asking a candidate to come in and present something, or even giving them time to like, hey, come in for a couple hours, and you give them a little, like almost like a little mini case. Like, here's the case. Go off and give you a couple hours to prepare some thoughts to come back and present it to me.
We do it all the time.
Oh, you do?
We do.
Really?
Yeah, we'll say bring in a case. We know don't bring in proprietary information that you can't share, but bring in a case that you've done before. And we're going to give you an hour, 30 minutes to share, and then we'll have questions. Absolutely.
How about STAR format? Do you all use that? Or
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And the hiring managers don't always know what to do with that. So we have a huge guide of questions. So I'll walk through that with them. This question isn't really relevant to your role. These are. But you know how we talked about having them meet with a variety of people on the team? Use that interview guide and say, you focus on these questions because that's really most important to supporting you and your group. You focus on this question, then that helps them each get different information. The candidate doesn't feel like they're answering the same question over and over again.
Yeah. And so, I mentioned STAR format for the folks that aren't familiar with that. Do you want to educate us real quick?
Behavioral based questions, right?
Yep.
Helping understand what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, all different behavioral based questions, not yes and no questions.
All that kind of stuff about background and kind of what they've done.
Right.
So I've heard, so I'm going to throw this out there and you tell me your thoughts on it. Okay. I've heard some candidates try and do like mini tests to try and get personality. So I remember reading some article in a Wall Street Journal where some CEO of a company would take the candidate out to lunch, okay, and then during lunch would pull the waiter or waitress aside and have them, he would pay them, right? But ask them to intentionally mess up the candidate's order just to see what the candidate
react.
Yeah, to see how they react.
Interesting.
What's your thought on that? Is that a good kind of idea? Not that I'm saying we got to go out to lunch, mess up everyone's order, but the idea is to try and like catch them a little bit off guard to try and see, because you're trying to see what do they do when no one's looking. Right. That's what you're really trying to gauge. When we're thinking about personality, it's like, I want someone who's just naturally, when no one's watching, this is how she operates or this is how they operate.
I think if you can ask a behavioral question or give them an example of, hey, this is what's happening in our department right now, what type of solution would you come up with? Or how would you handle this situation? Try not to lead them down a path, but leave it very open. And I've had candidates come back to say, oh, well, I just tell them what to do. I just tell them that this is really important and this is what they have to do. Well, we would probably pass on that candidate because we don't want a candidate to come in and just tell our stakeholder what to do. We want it to be a partnership. We want them to be humble. We want them to make it a win-win. So I think if they answer your behavioral-based question or they give you an example that's not going to work for that team, hopefully that will help.
Okay, so we still have a little bit of time left. Given the market is really tight right now and you're a hiring manager and you're trying to go get talent. I was actually working with a team yesterday, and this team's in the software space, Atlanta-based company, but software space, and they've got some different offices around the country. And they said, oh my gosh, I mean, it's so hard to even get talent, that's software technology talent out in San Francisco, because the what we have to compensation from a financial standpoint is so crazy that it could completely mess up our entire comp structure if we start bending to that. So how do you recruit talent that in either roles or locations that are really, really hard to get?
That's when you got to start being creative. Well, first of all, before you give up, make sure you've networked. It's so surprising to me how many times hiring managers have not used their own network to find people. Talk to everybody. Yes, post it on your LinkedIn, but talk to your network. Talk to the people at the gym. Talk to your people, your different clubs that you go to. Make sure your friends know, because it's amazing, especially in this market of 6 degrees of separation. We all know somebody. So make sure you're taking advantage of that, because I really, really believe that referrals are some of the best way to get the right person, the right personality, if you're talking to people. But then just start being creative about I think I need a software engineer because that's what I've always hired, and I can't find this person, and I've always looked for 15 years of experience and this and this and this. Well, if it's not out there, what can we do different? Maybe we hire 2 people at 5 years of experience, or the skills that I need that person with 15 years, can I give that to one of my seasoned current employees, take some of the more entry level or tactical things off of their plate and hire someone at a lower level. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Okay, so my last question for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you sure you're ready?
I don't know.
Okay. How about no-nos? Things that you would say, okay, listen, Miss or Mr. Hiring Manager, don't do this.
Right.
This is not going to, you may think it's a good idea,
Right.
but I've seen it before. It doesn't really work, or this is not the right approach.
Right. Don't hire people without talking to them. Okay. I've had a couple of people that were like, oh, this person was referred to me and the resume looks great. I mean, I don't think people do that as much anymore. But don't do it. Don't make assumptions. You and I talked about this earlier. When you're hiring for a role, you assume the person has this software skill. You assume, well, they've been doing this job forever. They know how. Assume nothing. Every company is different. Every person is different. Assume nothing. Ask all of the basic questions. Make sure you feel really confident about this person that you're talking to. Get people involved. Don't put all the pressure on yourself. I really like that idea of getting the perspective of other people this person's going to work with. Don't put it all on you. And then that way, if you do hire someone that doesn't succeed, everyone's going to blame it on you too. I mean, make sure they're invested and they're part of it. And they may see something in the interview that you missed that will help you make your decision.
I think all those are brilliant. And I think that they all tie back to the same general dysfunction that because time's our most precious resource and everything is urgent all the time, that pushes us to go fast.
Right.
Right. And we go fast. We don't talk to the person. We assume lots of stuff. We don't get other people involved. We just kind of shoot first and aim later.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden you got this person who showed up that is not really ready for the role or not equipped to do a good job. And then you go through the whole process of trying to onboard them and coach them up, and then you have to coach them out, and you get to start all
It's a
over
really
again.
bad candidate experience. It's horrible for your team and your morale, and it's bad branding for your company because honestly, that person could be a great employee. It just was not the right job for them. But that person's going to walk away and not share positive things about your company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hiring is tough, but it's important.
Yeah. So this was amazing. I could sit here and ask you more questions. I was about to ask you another one, and I thought we're getting a little close on time. So I ask all of my guests this question. Did you have one life hack for us in terms of, when you think about how we can, for this year, and we think about how we can live our life that much more either free from dysfunction or that much more productive? Mm-hmm. What's one life hack you might have for us, either personally or professionally?
I think maybe instead of having these New Year resolutions or things that I'm going to do different, what if you set up priorities? What's most important to you in 2020? When I look back at 2020, what do I want to say went well in my life? What did I put as the number one priority? And then go from there. So if most important to you is your health, if most important to you is your family, if most important to you is your career, set that as your priority and go for it. Don't let anything stand in your way.
I feel advised.
Excellent.
Did a great job advising. Thanks. I don't know if there's much talent here, but you advised me. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Anytime.
So if people want to learn either more about you, work you do, more about Cox, where can they go?
LinkedIn is great. I had a couple candidates actually that saw the show on LinkedIn that you had tagged me and they were able to reach out. So that was great. Thank you.
Great. So a good way for it to kind of find you. So,
yeah.
And so
it's Lori Pugh Howell.
So spell that.
LoriPughHowell.
Right. So all the folks listening now know where to go.
They know where to go.
And if they want to explore opportunities at Cox, where can they go?
Same. There? Reach out to me. And on my LinkedIn is our careers page for Cox Enterprises.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Your gift. I'm going to have you on again.
Thank you.
But not too many times because you'll take over. Like, and then it'll be the Lori Howell Show.
Wait till you're ready to retire.
That's right.
Okay.
And thank you for listening and watching. Of course, watch a show and listen to a show every week as we drop a new show with the entire purpose of helping you grow and become more effective, both personally and professionally. And if you're not already following us on Facebook, please do so. And if you're not listening on iTunes, why not? So, and if you are, rate, review, and subscribe. That's how folks find the show and we grow our tribe. So until our next show and next week, have a great week and an awesome life.